Hello everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. I'm sitting here with the rather wonderful Joey Sturgis. How are you?
Good.
Are you marvellous?
I am marvelously well.
Now we just did a Nail the Mix episode. I'm very, very blessed to be a part of that. Thank you ever so much for having me.
That was so cool to see you mix a song that you've never mixed before right in front of cameras.
It's a little terrifying because I didn't have a template for it. And you guys had narrowed down, thank you very much, you'd narrowed down the top 15. And I will say in Nail the Mix, I would say 13 of those were like radio ready.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, our community has been doing this for a while now, and they've had a lot of different material to work with. So it's really interesting to them, I think, to mix a song that's not as high level as what we, typically provide them. So that's really cool to also see you mix that too.
It was fun, and I felt like we did 7 or 8 hours on it. Obviously, I did a lot of my trademark talking too much. But yeah, there was a lot of talking. But even at sort of 5 or 6 hours worth of mixing, I still felt like the next day, to come back to it and double check everything. And it's sort of part of the process for me.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, that's the one thing is, I don't think any Nail the Mix session is ever going to be complete. Yep. But at the same time, no mix is ever complete. It's kind of just like, when do you stop working on it? You could work on it forever. So someday you got to call it done.
I did like the song though, and the artist was also the producer and the engineer and the mixer. And I think it was a really, really great song. It was like we were sort of likening it to Sunny Day Real Estate.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a really cool, like late 90s vibes or maybe even early 90s vibe. And the production was really interesting. There were no samples in that, right?
No.
Yeah. So it's cool. Like, it's got an organic vibe, and it's like a challenge for some people who I think are more accustomed to having that luxury of drum samples and
we used our own and saw what we could do. But yeah, you're right. A lot of the time when I get like heavier rock stuff to get, the drums and the drum samples are intertwined.
Yeah.
They record the drums with samples in mind. So Nathan Kane, thank you for reminding me, who did that, had gone into a room and specifically recorded the drums a certain way, which I think he did a wonderful job of. It was no disrespect. It just sounded like maybe it was the end of a long session and the snare head was pretty dead and just didn't have the snap that we wanted. And so we spent the first half really kind of addressing the drum sound, trying to get it great. And really speak the way we wanted it to. But I felt like his guitar sounds and everything else was great. And he had this crazy overdriven bass that he had done.
Yeah. It was cool though, because you mixed it hybrid, some on the board, some in the box. And, not everyone has a board like this. So it's really cool to see the in the box stuff. But then it's also kind of cool to see the whole perspective of like what a board can actually add to a mix in that scenario. And you showed all kinds of really cool techniques with that. That was awesome.
It's fun, Wolf. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Let's know a little bit more about you. I know you're from Indiana originally.
Yeah, grew up in Indiana, lived there for like 26 years, and moved in when I turned 27 and moved to Michigan. Not too far, but away from the cornfields at least.
What did your family do?
So my entire family is 100% musical. Everyone either sings, plays guitar, plays bass, plays piano, whatever. And my grandpa, for example, he's dead now, but he played guitar all the way until his very last day, and he lived to be 98. So music is deep in our blood, and
that was your grandfather was 98.
Yeah, was still playing guitar at 98 years old in his living room. I never thought that I would be anything in the music industry. In fact, when I was really young, I was going towards computers really heavily. I actually learned how to program in high school, made my own video games, and was kind of trying to go down that route. And then it was just by chance that I got kind of interested in using computers to make music, and then that kind of weaved into eventually becoming me making plugins. And so my whole background has come to this point where now I'm a plugin developer, and I'm in the audio education business, and I've produced records and done a lot of music making, but I kind of wanted to use more of my skill set in different ways than just making albums.
So, and we also did Tyler, didn't we? Did Tyler Smyth here?
Yeah, Tyler Smyth was on Nail the Mix, and he mixed Bless the Falls song Cutthroat, and they're on Rise Records. And that song was completely in the box. No hybrid stuff there.
And in Cubase as well.
Yeah, in Cubase, there's some virtual instruments involved. So that's really a cool thing to see, like, how do you approach a mix where not all of it is 100% real?
Well, I mean, I had an amazing experience, so thanks ever so much for having me on the show. I'm sure there's going to be links flying around here somewhere so you guys can check it out. So please do, and if you're on the email list, you'll also get some email information about that. How do you sort of budget your time? And the reason why I'm asking this, because I think this is a really, because I deal with this as well. I've got the YouTube channel, I've got other business ventures, I've got the Produce Like a Pro website and ProMix Academy, this, that, and the other, and I'm still making records, and I don't really sleep much.
Yeah, same. It's a couple of apps that are really helpful for that kind of stuff. Very heavily on Google Calendars. I kind of live and die by that. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist.
Yep.
Trello is a great app for managing your tasks.
Yep.
And then Slack for communication. So Google Calendar to plan your week or your month or your year, Trello to manage your tasks, and Slack to talk to everyone and interface with people. Those three apps together is the trifecta of productivity.
Good, we'll have to adopt that. What do you think, young Eric?
Yeah, we kind of have to.
We've just been going through this. I've been going through the, hey, whatever happened to,
Yeah.
one of those sort of discussions, yeah.
Yeah, Trello, for example, every task becomes a card and it has its own comment section. So as you go along and do things, you add little comments, and so then you can always go back and look and say, oh, this is what happened over the last, if it's a task that takes you 3 weeks to do, you might forget what happened in the first week. So now it's in there. And that's really helpful, and stay on task. And if you're running a studio or running your own business, it's really great, especially for interfacing with multiple people. If you've got like an editor, somebody who helps you edit drums or something like that, you guys can stay on top of each other with that kind of thing.
Yep, great. I love that tip. It's funny, I haven't used Slack, but that you're about the third person that's mentioned it to me in the last week. So we've been using Wunderlist. Did you actually, do you like that at all?
Yeah, I used Wunderlist for a little while. It's pretty cool because it does sync to your phone and everything. Mm-hmm. Trello does the same thing.
What do you prefer about Trello?
Trello, I guess, is a little more sophisticated in its design and how they've implemented it. There's a lot of really cool features in there. Plus, they have a thing called Power-Ups, which just extends the functionality of Trello to crazy extremes. I mean, you can do all kinds of app attaching, and you can attach like Google Drive to it and all this stuff.
Is it friendly across all platforms? Does it work on Android and iPhones?
Yes.
Okay. I know that sounds like a really obvious, dumb question, but...
These days, it's kind of hard to find something that isn't.
Well, there's sort of different levels of things that... one of the things is we get so used to being Apple people, being able to iMessage each other. And so you send a message to 20 people, and 2 or 3 of them have Androids. And they're like, I didn't get the message.
Right, yeah.
We get spoiled, thinking that way.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying, I don't want to get into this massive discussion of Android versus Apple or Apple versus PC. Help! No, we don't want to get in that world. That's not my point. My point is finding stuff that if its functionality works equally on all platforms, then it's going to win for me.
Yeah, Trello.
Okay, great. That's an amazing tip. We've learned a lot from it. Actually, it's been wonderful having you here because your company does work really smoothly. I'm very impressed with what you did, the professionalism of your staff. Everybody was on time. Everybody was, had their jobs dialed in.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a tribute to you.
Thank you. We've been doing it for a while, and we really care about, our mission, and that is to build the next generation of audio professionals. That's what we're here to do, and that's what we're committed to. So we've not only done that with our program, but also inside of our company. So some people, they want to be audio professionals, but maybe not in the same way that you and I do, like working on albums. They want to be, a professional like video guy in the audio industry. So we help build up our employees and our company internally as well, because we know that, if they're, thriving, then so are we. And, we're just trying to find, the best ways to educate people. And I think Nail the Mix is a program where it's unparalleled. Like, you can't teach someone how to mix by showing them how to mix one song. It has to be continually new material because music is always changing and mixing is always changing. I mean, the way that records were made before computers was like this, and now it's done like that, and now there's hybrids and all kinds of in between. So really the best way to learn is to absorb all the various thoughts and perspectives throughout the industry. And that's one of the reasons why we travel the world and try to show so many different perspectives on the same thing, and that is mixing.
That's wonderful. Well, it definitely shone through. I mean, I've recently been mixing, I did a song entirely over 3 stages using stock plugins just inside of Pro Tools, and no summing, no hardware whatsoever. And to be honest, it was a little harder work not going to a couple of plugins that I knew would solve issues, but I could still get to the same results. And it's going to be the artist's new single. Yeah. And it's completely, I think the reality is just like you were saying, there is like the traditional method of using consoles, even going back to obviously tape, you name it, but you can get the same results in 1,000 different ways.
I mean, technology has completely democratized the process. Yes. And now anyone can make records. And so it just goes all the way back to great songs. Yep. Like, what are you going to do with all this stuff? Now that you can do it and there's no excuses and there's no hurdles or obstacles, what are you going to do with that, that situation?
We were talking about Spotify a few days ago about how now the only thing that wins is the song.
Yeah.
And the artists with the big songs are the ones that are all in the top 100. All the big legacy artists just have massive songs. People aren't searching out so much for, not to say that there's no validity in it, of course. Great albums are great albums. All my favorite albums are a story from beginning to end, and everybody else is. Of course, that's true. However, the Spotify generation is about like, oh, I want to hear that song. And they might have a playlist going from death metal to Beyonce.
So, the thing is that now our generation or younger generations have less time to get invested in different types of art. So,
plus the accessibility means that they can move so quickly.
Exactly. So they're more accustomed to finding something that, has a little bit of a connection for a few minutes, but not for a whole hour.
Yep.
And so that's just natural progression. I think so it's even more important now to have great songs, like you said, and have a great production around that song, because you're competing with a platform full of great productions.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. Personally, I love Spotify. I know it's probably not hip to like it in some ways, but honestly, the accessibility is fantastic and I pay for it every month. Look, I used to love going to record stores and spending hours sifting through things, but I'd always go there to buy 2 or 3 albums and come out with 2 or 3 different ones and forget the ones I want. Now I can do it all.
Yeah. Well, I think it's unfortunate that so many people try to rely on of how the music industry used to be.
Exactly.
And, Spotify is actually a blessing in disguise, because now it's this huge marketing tool that bands could be using. And yes, you're not selling as many records as you used to, but now you're on a platform where you can be exposed and discovered so much easier than ever before. Now you're not having to pound those magazines and put up plaster those flyers everywhere. It's like people can discover you that have never heard of you in the blink of an eye. So that's what it really brings to the table. So if you think of Spotify as a marketing platform and start thinking about what else your product could be other than just music, I think is where you start to take advantage of where the industry is now.
Right, absolutely. It's a wonderful time. Like I always say, my son is 11. He has never bought a CD, and I doubt if he will.
Right.
But he listens to music all the time. And I love the fact that he is so eclectic. And I think kids now are growing up so eclectic.
Yeah, it's a great thing. I mean, I had to grow into that when I was in my early years. I only liked metal music or heavy music, and now, I'm listening to country, rap, everything. So
well, you're no longer completely dressed in black and totally white. You have a tan, for goodness sake.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of time to enjoy myself now, being a little, getting out of the studio, being stuck in the cave all the time. Yeah. It's a good thing. And I think now's a great time to, really learn all of the techniques associated with working on different kinds of music. There's a lot of people who really focus on one style, and they kind of get good at getting that metal kick to click just right, but jump into a country song and you quickly realize that you have no idea what you're doing with the kick drum when you jump from that genre to that. So I think stuff like what you do and what we do here at Nail the Mix and all this is really good for people, because you can expand your palette and become better at working with music as a whole rather than just metal or whatever it is that you work on.
I agree. In my academy, I'll give out stuff for people to mix, and sometimes they'll come back with that same thing. Funny enough, it is usually the kick drum, because they'll be super clicky, but the track is like maybe a folky rock track. And it's like, yes, this kick works with definition, but it's imbalanced with the rest of the song. Then, of course, we have the exact opposite. We've got like a big, dense rock song, and the kick is just a low thump, and there's no attack on it.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think that it used to be you'd go to a studio, you would hone your skills, you had all of this expansive, expensive equipment that you had to learn. Now it's so much quicker and easier to get to the point where you can make good music that you should be learning all these multiple techniques, especially when there's no one genre really that's paying the bills.
Right.
So if you're a mixer and we're talking about Australia, say you're a mixer in Australia, you could be mixing anywhere from around the world, thank God for the internet.
Right.
And you could be mixing metal one day, country the next, hip hop the day after that. So yes, it is really important to learn all these different techniques.
And the other genres, that's what's really cool about Nail the Mix is that, like, you know, you go and watch Billy Decker mix a country song and you might learn something about mixing metal. In fact, he actually mixed a metal song on his Nail the Mix, just for an example. And so I actually learned something there, you know, and so, like, I think watching, you know, somebody who mixes metal and maybe they don't work on rock music like you do, I think there's a lot for them to learn by watching your Nail the Mix. And so that's what's so great about it is that, you know, we're all learning all these new techniques that can be helpful in many different ways, and it's not just tied to one genre. You know, if you want to get good at this craft, like, that's the kind of community that you want to be a part of, is continually growing and learning new things.
Well, thanks ever so much for coming down and doing this. I think it was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, and I'm really honored to be on Nail Mix. Thank you.
Thanks.
Please, as ever, subscribe. Go to Produce Like a Pro, sign up for the email list. There will be links to Nail the Mix with my episode and, of course, Nail the Mix in general. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing, and we'll see you again soon.